Welcome to the Navigating Solo podcast, a dedicated platform where we explore the unique needs and concerns of solo aging with a focus on empowerment, connection, and proactive planning. I'm your host, Eileen Gerhardt, and today I am pleased to welcome our guest, Norman Reese. Norman
Really?
has recently retired after spending a career in technology, project management, and most recently in helping older adults to live engaging and productive lives. He has led a monthly online session for self help for over 10 years. Good Morning on Get Set Up, a weekly social group for older adults on Get Set Up for almost 3 years, as well as recently starting online sessions on secrets of a happy retirement for Front Porch and for Uniper. Norman, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be here, really.
Let's get started by discussing the transition into retirement. You recently retired from full time work, which of course can be a huge life change. How has your experience been so far? And why do you think it is so hard for recent retirees to adjust to life after full time work ends?
Well, I have to preface this by saying that I am still helping a little bit with my previous employer because the person that is going to be replacing me is not starting until next week. So I'm still doing a little bit of work, but I've had a lot of time to think about this. And I think the reason why it's so difficult for a lot of people is that many of us get so wrapped up in our work and we just don't even think about sometimes to think about retirement because I've been planning it for a while, but I think many people get thrust into it suddenly without having done much thinking about it. And that's why I think many people struggle a little bit, at least at the beginning, while they spend time trying to figure it out.
That makes complete sense. You have chosen through your newly adjusting to your retirement routine, but you have definitely stayed active in volunteer work. Can you share more about the role of volunteer work?
These path and retirement can be a little different. So what works for me may not work for someone else, but I've been volunteering now for over 10 years. And as you mentioned, self-help. And I seem to have been going towards organizations that help older people. And I just find it very satisfying. And now that I'm ready to retire, I like the idea that I'm going to be continuing to have something in my schedule that I feel helps others and also helps me stay engaged and staying active. So I think it's a win situation.
Are you someone who having a routine really helps in that way? Do you think that's also a benefit?
Absolutely. I think even having one or two things a day planned rather than just waking up to an empty schedule can be very helpful. I think many of us really have to adjust to life without full time work. Or some people have the advantage of moving into it gradually. But many people just do it from full time work to no work at all. And having at least something in your schedule to have, whether it's just meeting friends for lunch or having regular physical activity like swimming or walking, just that you do on an ongoing basis is going to make the transition a little easier. At least it has for me so far.
You identify as a solo ager, however you want to phrase it, but that framing. So we know that for solo agers, one of the biggest concerns is building and maintaining that strong support network when family and friends are often limited to play a role in that way. Is there advice that you have as people shift and adjust to retirement when someone's looking to build or enhance their support network?
I think that whether or not you have a large family or network or not, it really is important to be the one that takes the initiative to having these social contacts. So many people I find wait for others to reach out to them, and that may or may not happen. But I have found that since I knew I was about ready to retire, I've been reaching out to some people that I've worked with in previous years, some of which I haven't spoken to for years. I really didn't know whether those efforts to reach out were going to be successful or not. But I have found that in a lot of those cases, maybe not all of them, but in many of them, People have been very happy to hear from me, and we've had very nice conversations. So I think it's really important to be the one to be the one where I did this, so now I have to wait for them to do the same. You have to be the one to take the initiative. And I think many people aren't reaching out to you because they don't want to, but they get involved with their own life or with other things. And many people that I've reached out to are very appreciative that I've taken the time to do.
Are there particular things you could suggest to someone who might feel hesitant? We often hear from people, oh, I don't want to be a burden. Oh, they may not want to hear from me in so much time. I don't want to intrude on their life. You just took the initiative. For anyone who's teetering on that, do you have any initial tips for that?
I think one thing that will help is to actually show a sincere interest in what someone has to say. If you're just reaching out for the sake of reaching out and you just want to talk about your own concerns about retirement or about your own issues, people are probably not going to respond as well to that. But if you really show an interest and you really show that you want to make a connection to how you've known them in the past and maybe ask them about someone that you knew through a common friend or a common place where you work, you just show that you have an interest in making that connection. Most people are going to like that. As long as you go into it and this is not like when you're looking for a job and you're out there to try to get something. Obviously, your goal here is to maintain social contact with others. Obviously, when you're in school or when you're at work, it's a little easier because there's always people around you. When you're retired, you don't have this work of people around you every day. So you have to create it for yourself. But fortunately, I think many people will be happy to connect because they're facing the same issues as you are, most likely.
And as you said, grateful and appreciative for that reaching out.
Yes.
Sometimes people wonder if they should return to previous activities they've done or even step out of comfort zones and explore new interests. In your
Sure.
experience, is there a particular approach you think is more beneficial for those as they adjust to retiring?
Yeah, I think it's very helpful to do both. It's very tempting to return to things that you've enjoyed in the past, but it also can be very disconcerting to go back to those things and find out that they no longer have the same attraction that they once did. I think it's really important to just keep yourself open to new things to try out and just to see whether or not they work or not. The other thing that I have personally found useful is that you have to just get a little comfortable with the idea that you're going to have more downtime than you're used to having. When you're used to working a full day at work and you're going to get off on the train or the railroad, you don't have a lot of time free. You maybe have an hour or two at the end of the day. This is a very different situation. So I think you just have to get used to the fact that it's okay to be just having blank time in your calendar. Some of them you try that are new to you, like everybody is discovering pickleball, it seems these days. Some
Right.
of those things will be very interesting and things you want to continue. And other things you may try and find again, they're not for you, but you have to just try it and find out because just going back to things in the past, there probably is a reason why you moved away from certain things. And if you go back to them and expecting that they're going to give you the same satisfaction as the ones then, they may or may not. That's why I think you have to be open to doing this as well.
That openness, which has been a consistent part of the conversation thus far, the openness to the new, to the different, to for the patience with yourself in adjusting and adapting to a new schedule, a new set of timeframes. As you said, during your commute, that may be your only downtime depending on how you commute, but now your schedule may look different. I know that for
Sure.
you, you've connected with some new organizations to offer some new things as part of your volunteer work. As we mentioned in the intro, working with Front Porch, which would be great if you wanted to talk about what Front Porch does. They're a fabulous organization, as well as Unifer.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate because the organizations that I build relationships with are all in some way trying to make a way for people who are older to connect with other people. And this is in most of them, they're not necessarily a formal class where you have a topic like you used to in from school. This is when you just get together to socialize. For example, the activity I do on Get Set Up, that is really just like a morning social. It's like going to the coffee house in the morning and just meeting your friends and just having some basic conversation. Even in self I usually do topics every month to have a little bit of launching pad for the discussion. But all of these organizations that I've built relationships with, they're all trying in one way or another to improve the lives of older people. And I get into this originally because I was helping a lot of people in my family as they grew older.
Mhm.
And long before I myself became in the category of an older person, just felt there was something that would be beneficial to others. And you may not believe it, but earlier in life, I was very shy and reserved. So I guess I still feel that I have to do things to keep myself social and active. And these things give me a way to do that on an ongoing basis. And you really get to know people, even though a lot of these things are online,
Mhm.
most of these people in person, you would never know. We have the kind of the conversations that you would have with an old friend or a family member you've known for years. So it's really, for me, it's been very rewarding.
Well, that's do you find with your Good Morning through Get Set Up that they're similar, the same set of people, or are there new folks each time?
Yeah, we've been very fortunate because the organizations that I build relationships with are all in some way trying to make a way for people who are older to connect with other people. And this is in most of them, they're not necessarily a formal class where you have a topic like you used to in from school. This is when you just get together to socialize. For example, the activity I do on Get Set Up, that is really just like a morning social. It's like going to the coffee house in the morning and just meeting your friends and just having some basic conversation. Even in self I usually do topics every month to have a little bit of launching pad for the discussion. But all of these organizations that I've built relationships with, they're all trying in one way or another to improve the lives of older people. And I get into this originally because I was helping a lot of people in my family as they grew older.
Mhm.
And long before I myself became in the category of an older person, just felt there was something that would be beneficial to others. And you may not believe it, but earlier in life, I was very shy and reserved. So I guess I still feel that I have to do things to keep myself social and active. And these things give me a way to do that on an ongoing basis. And you really get to know people, even though a lot of these things are online,
Mhm.
most of these people in person, you would never know. We have the kind of the conversations that you would have with an old friend or a family member you've known for years. So it's really, for me, it's been very rewarding.
Well,
We have a lot of people that have been coming to that particular session for months and some of them years.
that's
Occasionally, we have new people that join us, and it's really quite interesting because there were people from all over the country. There were some people that were in the area that was affected by the recent hurricanes that we
mm,
in Florida. So I was checking into them. Unfortunately, some of them I had their contact information, so I was able to reach out to them personally and just check to make sure they were okay. But you'd be surprised people get to know each other online, and a lot of the people, I wouldn't say a lot of them, some of them have actually taken the time to actually meet some of these people in person, either through maybe someone who doesn't live that far away in the
mhm.
country, or maybe they're going to visit someone else and they find a way to include time with the person that they've only known online. And I think the pleasure as well. It's really wonderful to be able to close the loop to someone you've only seen on a screen and to be able to actually see them in real life. It's a really nice way to meet someone that you really already know, but to see them in another way.
That's really wonderful. I think that too adds to our conversation and is definitely beneficial to our listeners and possibly viewers. I think all of those different pieces, what we'll do in the show notes is I will make sure to link Front Porch and Get Set Up there and Uniper, et cetera. there are many people who, when they hear one of these episodes and hear these resources, sometimes it's the first time they've heard of them. And that just adds to their resource bank. So I really appreciate you talking about those as well. So we teetered into our next question, which has to do with staying engaged and active socially in general and specifically in retirement. Are there particular specific factors you feel for living well in retirement that people really should focus on as they're preparing, as they're adjusting? And is that social piece that central piece, or are there other pieces to consider as well?
For me, I can say that the social piece is a very integral part of it. I can easily find things, maybe not easily, but I can find things to do, such as going for a swim or taking a walk or doing something, going for a bicycle ride. But I think it's really important to pick activities that include other people. And sometimes you have to really think about how to do that because, in my case, I spent a lot of my life really operating as like a solitary person. And it's only in recent years have I realized the importance of involving other people in some way. And that means you may have to prioritize something that maybe isn't your number one interest, but something that just gives you a chance to have some conversations with others. And that's what I've been doing and slowly do some of the things on my own that I used to. Like I've been swimming for a long time, and you don't meet a lot of people when you're swimming in the pool. But I do find sometimes if you can take an interest that you have and blend it where you're going to come into contact with other people, especially being able to have some intergenerational
Mhm.
involvement with people who are not just your own age, people who are both younger and older. It adds a certain dimension to your life that I think is really important. If you just look for people like yourself who are your own age and who've done the same things you are, it really gives you a very small window of experiences that you have and the kind of people that you meet. But to be able to really reach out to people that are doing different things or different stages of life, it is a certain richness to life that I think really, at least for me, it's made a big difference. You kind of feel that I have to keep reminding myself on an
Mm.
ongoing basis only because I'm so used to doing a lot of things by myself that I have to just remember again. Sometimes just doing something with other people, even if it's an activity I would necessarily choose on my own, is worth it just for the sake of having that contact.
I think that's really important. Sometimes we as human beings gravitate to what's comfortable to us, whether it's on our own timeline, on our own terms, any of those pieces. But that internal reminder of this may not be my first choice of activity, but here are the benefits I'm hoping, or some of the things that I hope come out of it is definitely something to think about as well. This isn't necessarily a question we talked about ahead of time, but is there anything thus far with retirement and your adjustment to it, and you're in an interesting place where you're moving towards full-time retirement, but as you shared in the beginning, are doing some overlap. Is there anything that surprised you thus far?
I would say that I don't have enough time into it yet to really say because I'm still exploring the terrain.
Right.
But I will say, as I indicated before, everybody's path to retirement is going to be different. And it's very tempting to keep asking other people about what are you doing and how's it been for you? And yes, you can get, if you ask 100 people, you'll probably get 100 different answers.
Right.
But in the end, you have to develop a little trust in your own way to come up with whatever's going to work best for you. And it may or may not look like what someone else has chosen. It's taken me a while to get to a point where I'm a little bit more composed about it now. But and I've been luckier than most. I'm going to be turning 70 just next month. And I've been able to work all these years. And I know many people who have had to retire much
Mm.
earlier for various reasons. I've been fortunate that I've been able to work for most of my life and had a lot of time to think about it and plan for it. Many people don't have, but everybody has to find their own path. And some people may just have a more relaxed version of it where they just don't do much of anything, but that's what they enjoy. And
Hmm.
other people just continue to be very involved and very structured in how they plan their days. But it's really a very individual thing. And which, and the more people I talk to, the more I'm seeing that everybody is really going down their own path on this.
That's another opportunity to learn from and with each other, right? That 100 people, all different experiences. So that's a fantastic thing to consider as well. Is there anything else retirement wise that you feel like you wanted to share before we shift to just getting to know you a little bit better?
I think the important thing is just to really accept the fact that it's going to take some time to figure it out. And that even if you have the luxury of planning for it and you have some time to think about what the transition is going to be like, until you actually find yourself in the situation, as I have recently done, you're not going to really know what you're going to be feeling and what you're going to want to do or not do. So I think you have to be a little relaxed about it. It is a fairly major change. I've been, working for almost 50 years or so. And to suddenly take that lifestyle and make it into something that's very different, it definitely takes some adjustment. And it doesn't happen overnight. So I think you have to develop a certain amount of patience with yourself. Just be able to just trust that you're going to take some time to figure out what the path will be and that you may make some detours along the way because it's not going to be like you're going to retire. And even if you're not feeling good about it right away, for me, the important factor has been how can I stay involved with people? And
Mhm.
that's what I'm primarily trying to do. And I'm hoping that the other things in terms of what activities I'll be doing and just hobbies and crafts that I'll be
Mhm.
filling up my time with that will work it out as I go along.
That's also a great approach to it, which I think is something else that people can definitely take away from our conversation. As you're shifting to retirement mode, again, not quite there yet. And like you said, it's not linear, right? It has all different twists and turns to it. Is there a particular skill or talent that in an ideal way you'd be able to instantly master that you've always thought about and wanted to share?
One thing that I've been thinking about for a long time is I've enjoyed music usually as a listener.
Hmm.
A long time ago, I took piano lessons and I didn't stay with it long enough to really get skilled at it. And I'm thinking now that I have time and being that I still have the interest, maybe this is the time I want to go back into that again and really try to develop a little bit more talent at playing piano. So I have a little keyboard at home. So I
Hmm.
think I still have, that's still something I want to get back into again and to be able to just take advantage of the lifelong love affair with music, and
Well, that's
but doing it
that's
from the other side.
are there any particular leads you have or places that you think you might take a class or the first step is, oh yeah, there's the keyboard. I've always had this love. Let me see what I might do next with it. Or are there particular places you've already identified pursuing?
I'm not sure, but I can say that in general, what I've heard from other people is that very often you have to just take one step at a time. And I think for one thing, I have to just take the cover off my keyboard and just put the songbook in front of it and just make it, just to carve out some time in my schedule to actually be planning to be at the keyboard and doing it. What I'm going to do, whether I'll be taking an online class or an in-person class or just doing it on my own through YouTube, I don't know. But I think this is something we're just going to have to figure out as I go along. But we'll see.
That's great. Stay tuned. I like to ask these questions as part of our podcast episodes because it offers some different perspectives, but a constant through line in asking this question through this is now the eighth episode is often music, which is really interesting, right? Tapping into music in different ways, whether that's through instrumental or singing or some form of music and what role that plays in people's lives. So I find that really interesting and fascinating. And look forward to hearing about an update should one come way down the road. Are there pieces of advice that you've received throughout your life that have really stuck with you and you return to consistently that you might be interested in sharing?
I think that there isn't any one thing that I've heard that I think necessarily is something I would say has really made a difference. But I think in the end, what I think I'm starting to realize on my own is that you have to really rely on your own intuition sometimes. And you can get a lot of feedback from other people about what they've done and the choices they've made. But in the end, you have to take it all in and you have to have the trust that whatever decision you're going to make, in most cases, things are irreversible. And even if you make a decision that ends up being something that doesn't work out the way you plan to, I think earlier in life, I would beat myself up a lot over
Mm.
either did or didn't do. But I think now I'm trying to be a little bit more accepting of the fact that in most cases, I pretty much know what I need to do and how I need to do it. But that I'm not always going to know exactly what path, what road to go down. And that even if I have to step back and make a couple of changes along the way, just be a little bit calmer the way that I approach things. And it's great to get other people's feedback about something, but just to have a little bit more faith that whatever way I choose to go is going to be okay one way or another. That's something that I think I'm still learning.
I really appreciate you sharing your insights, your experience, the newness of the experience, and really the candid discussion around it. Is there anything you think that we left out or resources you'd like to share before we wrap up?
A couple of things I want to just mention again that all those sites that I'm volunteering for that do these online classes, the fact that we can do online classes at all is just an amazing way. I'm not saying you should never step out of your house and just stay in front of your computer, but any way you can have social interaction with people is wonderful. Places like Get Set Up and Senior Planet, at Uniper and Front Porch, they all have these different programs that you can join, get and use it as a supplement to other things that you're doing in person. Don't just use it exclusively. And I could think the other thing is that I've been involved quite a bit with organizations that are trying to redefine the whole view of aging. When I was young and my parents were going through their older years, I remember being an older adult as someone who just went to doctors and dealt with medical conditions. And obviously, those things do come up at times, but that's not all that it's about to be an older person. So I think a lot of what makes a difference is the attitude you have about being an older adult. And I think that rather than see it as just a time, obviously, some people have more challenges than others health wise, but many of us have a lot of loving to do. And hopefully, we'll continue to have long and satisfying lives. And I think maybe we can't do everything we used to do, but it doesn't mean we can't do a lot of things that still give us pleasure. So in a way, it's really examining your own viewpoint. And really the way you look at being older will really affect the kind of life you'll have as an older person. It's taken me years to learn that, and I'm still learning it. But I think it's really important to keep that in mind that being an older adult, once you stop working full time, it's not the end of life. It's really the beginning of a new stage of life that's going to have surprises and a lot of experiences that are going to be quite satisfying. I think it's always so important to keep it in mind.
That's also extremely helpful. I think also your mention of working with intergenerational opportunities, the opportunity to learn from and with each other of all different kinds of life experiences and having those opportunities to give to others as much as you're also able to benefit from those connections. And it sounds like your volunteer experiences and other experiences have really offered that in both directions, which is really great.
Yeah, I'm actually one of the things I'm doing right now is I'm doing something with
What-
The Road, which is another organization here in the city that does work for older people. and she's having a couple of interviews with a younger person, and we're just exchanging our experiences. And it's funny, I think a lot of people who are in the older generation, like me, never even interfaced with younger people other than people in their family. But
Mhm.
it's really very enriching to have some people of other ages that you're speaking to. And then once you speak to them, you realize that very often you have a lot to offer them because you've had a lifetime of experience that you can offer. And once you have these conversations, it adds a dimension that you don't get when you just speak to people that are at your exact stage of life.
Mhm.
I think it's something you have to look for, though. It doesn't happen, especially people who live in these older living communities where they only interface with people 60 or over or whatever. You don't interface with people that are of different ages. So I think you just have to really make an effort to make that happen. Unfortunately, there are activities through places like the Road and other organizations that have a lot of intergenerational ways to have relationships with other types of people. Really take advantage of it. It really adds something to life that you wouldn't just get if you're just going from day to people that you're maybe, or even the building I live in right now is a people of mostly older people.
Mm.
I don't venture out either online or in person. I'm never going to meet a lot of these younger people. So I think it's important to include them in your lives.
You have so much wisdom and insight and have really, it sounds, done a lot of internal conscious thinking about how to approach retirement and just aging as part of the aging continuum. I know that it's likely that people may want to connect with you. People can always do that with us by sending an email to podcast@navigatingsolo.com. But if there's any resource that you want to share as well, we can share that in the show notes if there's a website or anything that you'd like to include.
Well, I also wanted to thank you for the work you've done. You have made a special effort to help people who are navigating this stage of life pretty much on their own because they don't have a large family or large network of people around them. And there's more and more people in that category, as I'm sure. So I think it's great that you're offering that, and I would encourage people to take advantage of that. Those of you that are, for a long time, I was really bemoaning the fact that I didn't have a large family and I didn't have many people in my life. And obviously, as time has gone, that's become even more. But through the efforts that I've made by having all these online connections and uh, being involved with some of these volunteer organizations, work for, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be living a life all on your own if you don't want to, because there are plenty of people around who are very happy to be friends with you and to be engaged with you, but you have to go out and find that and you have to make yourself available. Many people really can't, you know, seek that out, but you're obviously one person who is recognizing many people need a little bit of a boost in making the move. And I think navigating solo work that you're doing recognizes that many people find themselves on their own, but that doesn't mean you have to be living alone. There are many people who want to help you go through these stages of life.
Well, thank you for that. And also, I always remind people that when you're tuning into a podcast or joining in some kind of virtual or in person session on solo aging, other people are either on the screen in 2D with like minded thoughts and ideas and questions, or in 3D as you're sitting together in a session. And that often people who either tune into something online or attend something in person can be really good candidates for enhancing your support network as well. Because we know we've come together with, even if it's just this one idea, that's enough to spark other relationships. So I thank you for your kind words about that. I also am very grateful that you were so willing to share your experience as well. I know people will get so much out of it. So I will make sure to list that people can send you an email via podcast@navigatingsolo.com. I'm fortunate to know how to get in touch with you and can certainly pass that along. And hopefully, people will also pursue some of the resources you've shared that you're a part of, and we'll make sure to include those as well. So I think we've had a really fantastic, enriching, insightful conversation. And I'm so grateful to Norman and also to all of you for tuning in to the Navigating Solo podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have any questions or topic suggestions or guests you think would be great, either in the professional capacity of sharing their professional expertise or individuals who have something they're very interested in sharing about navigating their own lives as a solo ager, we definitely welcome that opportunity as well. So until next time, stay empowered and stay connected. I'm your host, Aileen Gerhart, and this is the Navigating Solo podcast.